Hello, you're watching the Boys Don't Knit podcast, and my name is John-Fidel. It is March 15th, 2015. I'm having an okay day so far. Not very productive, but we're getting things done. It was pretty hot earlier. That's why I'm wearing a tank top. It's kind of scary that it's still winter and we're still experiencing these really scorching hot days here in California. And but we are experiencing a moment of coolness. Hopefully, it lasts for the rest of the day. Sun's kind of gone behind some clouds. So, I'd like to start things off by saying hello to everybody. And if you're a new viewer, welcome to my podcast. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for joining with me again. I'd like to say hello to Heather. Heather has her own podcast as well. It's Heather's Yarn Crafting Tales. She's really great. She's really funny. I enjoy watching her while I knit, and 'cause that's what I do. I usually knit and I watch podcasts. Um, don't always watch podcasts when I knit if my boyfriend's here, but lately he's been kind of getting into them too, and with the people that I watch. So if you have time, you should go over and check her out. I'm going to try to include her podcast in the show description. I've been terrible for the last two episodes with putting information and links in my in the video description, but I will start doing that with this one. We're turning it around today in this episode. I have this hair that's getting kind of crazy. Well, another podcaster I'd like to bring up is Denise from Knitting Den. She said hello to me and said my name over her podcast. To me, that was like really cool because she correctly said my whole first name, which is John-Fidel. On Ravelry, I'm known as John-Fidel R. And I never really been too active in Ravelry groups, but I'm trying to change that as well too, especially now that I'm getting involved with knit-alongs that a lot of other podcasters are holding. So I introduced myself in her introduction form on her Ravelry group, and yeah, the last episode she said, I'd like to say hello to John-Fidel, and she wasn't sure if she said it right or not, but she did. And if you are unsure of how to say Fidel, always think of Fidel Castro from Cuba. So that's usually how people remember me. But then people start thinking my name is Fidel Castro. So people can call me whatever they want. John-Fidel. It all depends on what you're more comfortable with. Preferably for me, I do like John-Fidel. But like I said, if you want to call me John, that's great. And from that point, we should jump into projects I'm currently working on right now. So first thing I'd like to bring up is the amigurumi that I've been working on for my boyfriend Sal. It's Gengar. So if you're unfamiliar with who Gengar is a Pokemon. And he is I've never watched a show. Just from what he is, like a shadow Pokemon, and just from the looks of him, he seems very mischievous, I guess you could say. So once again, I'll try to insert a picture if I can. I'm trying to do a minimal amount of editing as possible, and I'm still learning how to use my current editing program. It's the same program I use to record my videos, and it has very basic options. So if I can get a picture, I'll try that. What I'm doing with this one that's kind of different from the pattern is I'm doubling over with the yarn, so I'm using 2 strands. This is my second take. The first take, I accidentally flipped the bird to the camera while trying to show the 2 strands. So I'm being very careful with my hands and how I use them. And I'm using a size J hook. Yes, I think I'm saying it correctly this time. Because last time I didn't. I said I was using a G hook, and I was some other hooks that I was completely messing up on. But the yarn that I'm using is the Red Heart Super Saver yarn. And it's in the colorway Amethyst. I always say Amethyst because one of my favorite songs is Violet by Hole. And the beginning of the song, I think it says, and the sky was made of amethyst, and all of the stars look like little fish. And so I say that, that color all the time, but when I see the word, I don't know why my brain just gets weird and I can't pronounce it. But it's a really pretty color. And I think this project has changed my mind about Red Heart. As I said before, I wasn't a huge fan of Red Heart before. It's acrylic. It's not, the most nicest looking yarn in the world, but I think it does have its purposes. And I think the reason why I had such a hard time before with Red Heart was because that was the first yarn I learned to knit on and crochet on. So as you can imagine, sometimes a bit of frustration involved when you're first learning something, and I think I may have directed my frustration at the yarn rather than at my skill. So I think I might have to do a few more projects out of Red Heart, especially since one of my good friends, Blanca, she makes really amazing hats and other projects, and like Night Before Christmas scarves for her friends, and she makes all of her stuff out of Red Heart yarn. And this is pretty much, I was working with the size of ski net, the one I just showed you, and this is about as much as I had left over afterwards. And it's already been rolled into, so I can easily just start working with it into strands again. So the second project I'm working on right now, which is in my Star Wars bag, I noticed that like everyone's been showing off all of their bags on all of their podcasts. It's just been pretty cool that everyone's getting into project sewing bags and making the coolest ones they can. A lot of people have been interested in buying my bags and seeing how much I make them for. I make them, in order for me to really make something and it be worth my time and effort and I'm selling it, I'd probably have to charge around like the $40, $45 range. Because I spend a whole day on the bag. I'm not an expert sewer. And, if you're not an expert sewer and you're making this, sometimes if you maybe see a bag and you see like the price tag that says $40, $50, even $60, it's because, it's sewing is a craft and it sometimes takes us a bit of time. There's having to, especially when it's something like this, it has a design that's very like horizontal. You have to cut out the fabric in a certain way, and you have to make sure that everything is lining up in a certain way. I try my best to line up stuff. Like right here is a seam between this panel and that panel right here, but it's not too noticeable. A little bit on Carrie Fisher's face. She got kind of cut off. Sometimes you get unlucky, like this one. This is kind of obvious if you were to see it, but there's just two panels just smashed together. It's the ends. But I try my best to make it look as great as I possibly can. Even on the bottom, it's not, too bad. But in order for it to be a really good quality product, you do have to take your time, and that does bring up the price of bags. But I'm not selling my bags, at least not at this point. Maybe when I get better at it. But I was working on a sock out of these two yarns that I showed the last time. It was Premier Yarns, a charcoal colored yarn, and then a patent sock yarn that's lime, white, gray, and black, and all different types of shades in between that. And this is going to be the majority of the sock. This will be the cuff, the toe, and the heel. I bought the yarns before I got a pattern. I don't know why I did that. I just fell in love with the colors, and I'm like, I'm going to make socks out of these. And that's before I realized that I was going to have to double over on this yarn to really get the same type of gauge that I get on this yarn. And also, most of the patterns that are out there right now, at least that were for these, that were for vanilla socks that were remotely close to the gauges I was getting with these ones, were all for magic loop methods, and I don't do magic loop, so I do double pointed needles. And so I'm not too sure if that would have made a huge difference, but I was like, I'll just find something with double pointed needles. And luckily I did find a pattern for it. It was online. It's not something I can link to on Ravelry, but I'll try to, I don't think I'll put a link to it. If you want to know, after I'm done with them, I'll let you know what the pattern I use for it. But it was also hard too finding a pattern because I have size 13 feet. So finding something that was big enough for my feet was kind of difficult too. So what I ended up finding, which is pretty much a formulaic pattern, it was for Aran weight, but I'm just substituting the gauges. I'm just substituting gauges and stitch numbers around. And I came really close on my first try. I knitted the cuff and I put it to scrap yarn. And when I put it on for a sizing to see how it fit on my calf, it was still too loose. And if I was running around, this sock would be coming down with my foot. So I frogged it, and I just have to take away 4 stitches. Rather than using 68 stitches, I'm going to be using 64. But that's for the sock. So this is for the Spring into Socks knit along that both the Bakery Bears and Knicks Knits are doing. So if you're unaware of that, that's a really cool knit along. You should go on to either find their podcast. It's spelled Knick, like his name is Nick, but with a K in front, Knits, or the Bakery Bears. And they're both really great podcasts to watch too. I love watching them while I do my knitting and my crocheting. And then the only thing that I would say is truly finished now is my cowl that I showed off last week, the reversible cowl. See how the yellow is the main on one side. It's done in rib stitching. And it's the Brioche stitch, the 2-color Brioche stitch. There's a seam in the back that I thought was going to be an issue, but I actually like the way the seam looks. So, like I said before, it reminds me of a lizard spine. So, I thought that was cool. It's very Raptar. And that's it for as far as my projects that I'm doing. I mean, the only other thing I'm working on is my bag, which has been in hibernation for quite some time. I need to finish my bags because I'm doing more projects and I don't have anything to put them in other than like Walmart bags and Ziploc bags. And I think they deserve a little bit more love than that. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned is that I'm getting into spinning, and I just joined a Spinners and Weavers Guild for Fresno. And at the last meeting, only 4 of us showed up, and so I was thinking, oh man, this may not be like the greatest meeting in the world. But when I first walked in, there were all these yarns spread across the table, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Or is someone selling the yarns? Is this something that they spin up and that they're going to, offer us to see if we want to buy them at a discount price? It was actually one of the members that couldn't make it. She's destashing, and so she offered the yarns for whoever wanted them. So it's first come, first serve, whoever wants the yarns. It was very hard not to be greedy, but we managed to contain ourselves and only get what we honestly really, really loved. And for me, since I'm getting into making socks and possibly gloves pretty soon, I got this beautiful sock weight yarn. It's Lorna's Laces hand-dyed yarns. And it's called Shepherd's Sock. It's 80% superwash merino wool, 20% nylon, super fine weight, and it's approximately 430 yards. It's machine washable, and the colorway is Edgewater. So I saw this, and it's 2 skeins of this. I snatched it up. I was really excited, and I'm looking forward to this. This is really beautiful yarn. Most of the color of yarns that I work with are usually solid color yarns, and I've been trying to break away from that. I want to get more adventurous with the yarns that I'm using, and more like beautiful variegated colors like this. So I am super excited about doing this, and I can't thank Martha enough for destashing this. Another one was this one. It is the Foxfire Fibers and Designs at Springadell Farms. It's charcoal velvet, and it's made out of border Leicester yarn, and it's approximately 240 yards. It's sports weight. It's really nice. It's like a chocolatey color. It's coming off a little bit more paler because of the lighting issues that I have right now. But it feels really nice. I would really love to make a sweater out of this. Like I said, I'm going to also be getting into making sweaters pretty soon, so this should be really interesting. I have 7 skeins of this, so it's definitely enough to make a nice sweater out of it. That was amazing. I was so excited. The other girls were mostly weavers, so they just got like yarn that would be really great for weaving, and I think some fiber to spin up on. So we each took like 1 or 2 things we saw on the table, but there's still like a ton left. And if nobody wants those yarns, I'd be more than happy to take them. But really, we were all like, we'd love to take everything today, but we want to make sure that everybody gets some and that we don't take just all like the best stuff. So, because there was this really beautiful yarn. It was like this like crimson and like blood red colors just all mixed in. It was just like this variegation, and it was just really amazing yarn. It looked really nice. Like you could probably make a nice shawl or cowl out of it. And the only things I think I have left is so I finally got to experience washing fiber. This was one of the most scariest moments of my life. Okay, so when you wash fiber, you have to be really careful that you don't agitate it while you're washing it, because if you agitate it, it starts felting on you. And I could have swore it wasn't a felt up on me, so I filled up 2 buckets full of super hot water when I had Dawn, the dishwashing soap, in it. I put the fiber in the Dawn bucket and just slightly, just pushed it down, wait for it to come up, pushed it down, then lift it up, let all the water slowly leave from it, and keep in mind I didn't give time for the water to kind of cool down a little bit, so I kind of burnt my hands a little bit, put it in the next puddle of water or bucket of water, and then I just gave it 1 more dunking in another bucket. And I looked at the yarn and I'm like, this is obviously a mess. It probably felted on me. But when I put it in the spin cycle in a sweater bag and removed all the water, most of the water from it, it was still fluffy. It was nice. And yep, all I have to do is just card it 1 more time and I can spin on it. I might dye it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to make some yarn and then dye the yarn afterwards, or if I want to dye the fiber. And the only other thing is, I think that's it. Just as far as like my creative process goes and things like that I've been trying to make more time for myself as far as knitting goes. I think I get caught up in trying to focus on one thing at a time rather than trying to maximize my time by multitasking stuff. So, like lately at work, I haven't been knitting or crocheting on my breaks, but I've actually been really forcing myself to actually knit and crochet on my breaks. Same thing like my boyfriend, he comes over, he's been spending more and more time over here, so I try to make sure to always, he doesn't mind that I knit, but I feel like he does, and I let it get to me too much, and I don't end up doing anything. But lately I've been knitting alongside of him, and he's been wanting to do some more of his yarn crafting techniques, I think, too, as well, because he was doing latch rugs. He's a huge Super Zelda fan, so he was doing a Zelda latch rug of the Sheik symbol. So hopefully if he sees me having more fun with yarn, he might get back into some of his crafts. And like I said, I'm just looking forward to some of these projects I've never done before, like the sock. I can't wait to get started on that hat, designing my own hat, and then at some point getting into doing sweaters. So thank you for tuning in for my episode today. I'm trying to do these every Sunday, Monday at the latest. If you have any questions, let me know. If I'm doing I usually watch my videos after I get done recording them. Let's see if I'm doing any annoying like speech patterns. That's part of the reason why I started doing these in the first place, was to look at my speech patterns and to see if I'm still saying a lot or and. I probably am. Today was a little bit of an off day, so I'm probably saying and a lot more than I normally do. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great week. Oh, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Be careful out there. It's crazy. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot more accidents happening this year than there has been in the past. So, like I said, if you're going to go out and celebrate St. Patrick's Day, be careful, be safe, and have a great week.